The leader could be anybody. Don't shoot the messenger. I just define the game. You're the one who plays it. Your mind is a great servant, but it's a terrible master.
That sparked my interest. I thought, we need to talk about this. My God, we have so many pointless, stupid meetings. I don't know why I go to them.
The big stuff is hard enough. That's kind of dumb. Like, who's supposed to handle this? We actually enjoy losing because it lets us enjoy winning.
You're challenging me here, David. I like this. Today's special guest is absolutely known as a guru globally in the world of productivity. David Allen created the framework called GTD, and millions of people and companies and organizations and teams have adopted this way of being productive, getting things done. That's what GTD stands for. Now, I had him on the show maybe a few years back. It was an amazing conversation about GTD, but today we're talking about his latest book, Team. Getting things done with others. He's discovered one term that I found very, very enlightening and interesting, which is ambient anxiety. And we identified that I might actually have a little bit of that. And he challenged me on something. I think you'll get a giggle halfway through the show. And I really love being challenged. And it forces me to level up. So I know that there's going to be something in this episode that really resonates with you. If you want to work better with others, team being you and a friend, you and a partner, you and your taxi driver trying to get somewhere, you and your child, you and the people you work with, people that you lead, a team that you run, whatever it might be, this conversation is really going to serve you. David's one of the world leaders and he's getting into his later years in life, but I'll tell you what, he is so switched on. We had a chat afterwards about the age that he is, and I'm thinking, wow, if most 35-year-olds were doing what you're doing and thinking the way you think, man, oh man, they'd be very fortunate. He's a world leader, great thinker, an absolute just great human. So please sit back and enjoy the show. David, a huge welcome to the Lead on Purpose podcast.
Delighted to be here, James. Thanks for the invitation.
Hey, it's so great to have you back. And it's interesting. We've only had 3 guests that we've invited back, one of those being our former Prime Minister. And the reason we invited you back is because you bring such value to our listeners. And the book that you wrote many years ago, GTD, has transformed many companies, organizations, and teams. And we'll talk about that book in a second, but you've just released another book. It's available today for pre-order, and it's called Team: Getting Things Done with Others. So that sparked my interest. I thought we need to talk about this more now than ever. So thank you for taking the time to share.
Yay. Hey, my pleasure. Was that fun?
Yeah, let's have a lot of fun. Now, I'm going to put a link to our previous episode, which was quite some time ago, maybe a year and a half or maybe a couple of years ago. I'll put a link to that so people can go deep with getting things done, GTD, your methodology. But for those that don't have the time to listen to that right now, what is GTD and who's it for?
Well, second thing, who's it for is anybody who's got a busy life who wants to surf on top of their life and work instead of feel buried by it. So that's
all of us.
That could be pretty much anybody these days. And the methodology itself is simply a curation and a compilation of best practices that I researched and have tested, many, many thousands of people, over the last 40 years. And it's really just, it's advanced common sense, but it's like, how do you surf on top of your game? How do you keep your head clear so you're focused on whatever you want to be focused on without being distracted? And so your brain is really a groggy office, but most people are still trying to use their head as their office. But your head, it was not designed to remember, remind, prioritize, or manage relationships between more than 4 things. Otherwise, you become suboptimal in terms of how you're thinking and how you're focused. Now, don't shoot the messenger. That's now, current cognitive science data. I just uncovered that 40 years ago, that your head's for having ideas, not for holding it. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of the methodology is how do you get stuff off your mind, even if it's not finished, you're still committed to do something about it. And I just figured out that algorithm. So that's what getting things done is, where you have to just capture the stuff that's got your attention. You have to clarify exactly what it means, what you're going to do about it, if anything. You need to organize it where it goes, if it's trash, if it's reference, if it's incubate for reminding later, or if it's actionable thing. What's the next action I need to take on it? And if one action won't finish it, what's the project that I'm committed to complete? And then you need to make sure you review that inventory. If you can't finish it when you think of it, you need to make sure you review that inventory on a consistent basis and keep it current so you feel confident about what you're doing, as opposed to just being driven by latest and latest. So there's a short version of a long story.
Well done. Amazing elevator pitch. I love it. No, I have to say, after we chatted last time, I started to think about how I did things, how productive I was, how organized I was, and realized it was a bit of a hot mess. And I started a central capturing system. And you talked about having a place, one place that you can trust to capture all your thoughts. And I just did it on my phone, on a note, and I've got different categories in that note, but I've really been solid with that. I haven't kind of strayed from that. And that has helped me a lot with managing my team, managing my time, dealing with priorities, and realizing when I capture something that seemed like a priority at the time, actually, no, that thing could wait till next month. So it's been really valuable, very simple methodology, but a very, very powerful one.
Okay, continue.
No, thank you. That's all down to you. So,
Well, I just define the game. You're the one who plays it. Right? I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not out there trying to change people's habits and have them transform themselves. I just defined what the game was and then just tried to put out the game in such a way that people who might want to get a clearer head, more clarity, more focus, more sense of groundedness in their life could take advantage of it. Whether they do or not, it's up to them.
and every high performer, I feel, the clearer they are, the more clarity they have around their vision, the easier it is to move towards their outcome. So having a cluttered mind, holding all these things in their head, it's a disadvantage.
Sure. Yeah.
So
And see, your head is a, as I said, it's a crappy office. But see, your mind has no sense of past or future. So, and it doesn't have a brain. If your brain had a brain, it would only remind you of something when you could actually do something about it. But it'll wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God, I need cat food, or I need a vice president, or whatever. And you can't do anything about it at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's kind of dumb.
Very.
So, yeah, it's really just understanding your mind is a great servant, but it's a terrible master.
And if left uncontrolled to its own devices, I guess it can drive us bonkers.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we can
Well,
see.
it's not so much. I used to say that my methodology was helping people deal with overwhelm, but frankly, overwhelm you deal with overwhelm. If you're overwhelmed, you'll do whatever you need to do, good or bad, but try to get out of the overwhelm itself. And the real issue is what I refer to now as ambient anxiety. That vague sense that there's stuff out there you told yourself you might, would, could, should, ought to do, but don't know exactly what it is, but it might be more important than whatever you're currently doing. So whatever you're doing to avoid thinking, or you're doing it because it's latest and loudest, and you hope that's the right thing to do.
Ambient
Sorry.
anxiety. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a beautiful way to describe it. It's interesting. Since we last spoke, I read a book that really transformed my mind, and that was Stolen Focus. Have you came across that?
No, I haven't.
I'd love you to read it at some point if you enjoy reading. So, Stolen Focus is by Johann Hari, and he went very deep with his research around what has happened to humans' ability to focus and how distracted we are and what's happening with the speed of the news that we're given and the information and what it's doing to our ability to actually focus on the tasks that are most important. And it really changed the way I interacted with this thing, the old mobile phone, majorly. So very much worth a read. I think you'd enjoy it.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Now let's talk about your latest book. And for anyone that's, as we start to talk about it, is keen to get it right now, I'm going to put a link in the show notes where you can get it from an Amazon, etc. But I'm going to encourage you to walk into your local bookstore and grab a copy and support local. So David, team, getting things done with others. What's the book about?
Well, my co-author and I decided about 3 years ago we needed to fill the gap. I've done for 40 years, and Ed, my co-author, for 20 years anyway, we've been coaching thousands of individuals one-on-one about how to get individually productive work. Millions of people out there. using GTD and the methodology to improve their lives. And then they go back into dysfunctional teams, dysfunctional cultures that make it very difficult for them to then maintain that kind of focus. We said, because over the years, people get my methodology and they go, God, I wish everybody around me got this. It would make life and work so much easier if I didn't have to go bang people in the head and, getting things done. And I never really had the bandwidth or the capability to be able to sit down and figure out how to figure out what that manual needed to be. How would you do that? Because it's so individual in terms of each people's their teams and their cultures, in terms of, well, what are the critical elements of that? So Ed and I sat down and have spent the last 3 years figuring out the critical elements of what works when things really work. And, back to your point that, healthy high performance for sure, that's produced the results or better than the results by whatever the intended times are that you need to produce those results. But healthy means how sustainable is this? Can you recreate this? So there are a lot of high performance teams, but if their team disappears or half the people leave, can they recreate that? Do they know what the principles are that made them a high performance team? So it's teams can be doing all the right stuff. They may not know what those right things are and be able to duplicate them or replicate them. And I think that's what we've done is we've really curated all the best practices we've seen or accumulated 60 years of working with teams in productivity. What works, what doesn't work, what's functional, what's dysfunctional. The strange thing about it, James, is that basically all the principles of getting things done applied to teams are as critical. It's just, see, you could be clear, James, about your productivity and what you're doing and have a clear head. I can be clear with myself about what I'm doing and have a clear head. But we get together and then we have to come up with something together. We've now expanded exponentially the complexity of what needs to be managed and how it needs to be managed well. Is that yours? Is that mine? Who's going to do that? Oh, what are you responsible for? What am I responsible for? And what's the purpose of our even getting together? So all the basic principles, so we go through in the book, it really is taking all the different principles, the three major models of getting things done, which are the 5 steps for how do you get things under control, the 6 horizons of focus in terms of the commitments, and then the natural planning model. How do you take a situation or a project and get that under control and focused?
Again,
So we take all those and expand those and unpack those for this is what that would look like for a team.
and that's what a team needs. And while you're sharing this right now, I'm like, this feels like it's so tangible, so accessible. There's no complexity to it. But often we confuse, hey, it looks simple with it's going to be easy. I know it's not. I know it's not easy. Now, for the listeners, before we hit record, we were chatting about high performance. And I was sharing that my definition is consistently exceeding norms whilst maintaining healthy relationships and well-being. And the reason I was so excited to talk to you is I felt that the ethos of your new book was all about healthy high performance. And I know there's a difference because I've met many high performers and high performing teams that have burnout, overwhelm, suicidal ideation, all these things going through, crap relationships, awful ill health. To me, that's not high performance. And I'll be honest, David, sometimes when I was at my best and I was winning world championship titles, people on the outside would be pointing, going, he's a high performer. But actually, if they had scratched under the surface a little bit, they would have seen a guy who was 60, 70 hours a week, burning himself out, focusing on everything about winning and very little about nutrition, relationships, rest. None of that mattered. I was not a high performer. I was doing things at all costs. So I really love that you're saying this is about healthy high performance. Why is that important to you? Why do you think healthy high performance is the focus here?
Well, it creates sustainability of the good work a team might be doing. Especially these days. Who's even on your team? Who just left? Oh my God! And they're in China, or they're in South Africa, or they're in Brazil. Oh my God! How do we make sure that the team itself is focused on what it needs to be focused on, and that as things change, do we have the flexibility, the agility? Do we have the Scrum capability? Do we have the ability to be able to take new information, new data, and change and integrate that rapidly without, again, burning people out and without overdue stress? You can't get rid of stress. You'd never grow or win anything if you didn't have some level of stress, but you want healthy stress. Wow, here's where we want to go. And a lot of what we've done with the book, James, is that we identified not the big stuff. The big stuff is hard enough. Like where do you really want to go with the team? What's the real vision and where do you want to be? That's great stuff and great stuff to get clear about. But the truth is, the mechanics of how you work together as a team, if those are suboptimal, it then exhausts the ability to focus on the cool stuff and to get the really cool stuff done. So what you want to do is you want to eliminate the stuff that's getting in the way of the team being able to focus clearly on where it wants to go and what it wants to do. So you could have a high performance team that's burning people up, but you could also have people doing the kumbaya stuff and not producing anything.
Yeah.
So you kind of need the combination of both of those. And we use the model, which is it's a pretty obvious model about let's say soccer or football, something where you need to have individuals. You have great skill as an individual on the team, but you need then the team to be able to work together really well. And you could have individuals that are really good themselves, but if they don't know how to work on a team and how to cooperate and collaborate toward a team goal, you're going to lose. And the other way around too. You could have great processes and a great team coach or whatever, but you got people that can't cheat or can't kick or can't pass. So you actually have to have both. In order to have a healthy high performance team, you need to have both good processes about how you're working together, as well as individual capabilities to be able to implement.
I can't agree more. And in the research for the book, plus your extensive experience in the field, are there specific traits that you see in healthy, high-performing teams?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a bunch of a lot of them just are doing it in a high performance team. They're just automatically they have a real purpose. They know what they're trying to accomplish. They have a vision of why success. They have a culture that keeps supporting that. They also have processes where they know how to practice. They know how to work together with each other and course correct. They know how to pay attention to what has people's attention. But they need to have a culture that's open so that you don't let your extroverts run rampant over your introverts, in meetings and in collaboration. So you need openness. You need trust. Trust is a huge one. You need to be able to trust if I kick the ball over there, they're going to do something with it, the right thing. And so anyway, so building a culture of trust, a culture that actually focuses on the purpose of the team and the vision of success, as well as then, being able to identify the real stuff that shows up that may be in the way of all that needs to be course corrected, and a process to make sure that happens that's safe and open, and stays flexible and real with whatever the current realities are. I go on and on, but those are all traits, I would say, of a high performance team. And the real high performance teams are the ones that have built a culture of winning. That's really it. And I forget, I think Ed, my co-author, quoted somebody that said, look, we actually enjoy losing because it lets us enjoy winning.
I love that.
That much more. So anyway, so all those are factors that have to do with it. Actually, any of the traits, they know how to capture, they know how to clarify, they know how to organize, they know how to reflect and review on the content. They know how to make sure that there's actionable items that people know what they need to do about that, and they trust each other to follow through on that. And they They need to have a purpose, and they need to have a vision, and they need to make sure that whatever their goals are, the short term things that they need to accomplish and develop to make sure the vision happens, that those are clear and reassigned as needed. And then boy, roles. Is that yours or is this mine? Boy, that's one of the biggest issues out there. Dysfunctionality is people being unclear about their roles. Like, who's supposed to handle this? They go to meetings and they talk about all sorts of stuff, and nobody decides, wait a minute, whose role is it to fix this? And then they have to have another meeting. It's like, in meetings and emails are the two crushers for most executives.
Yep.
But meetings and emails are only symptoms of dysfunctionality. If you're getting too many meetings or non-purposeful meetings or meetings you don't need to go to, and you're going, that's a symptom of dysfunctionality. Or if you're getting too many emails, you don't know how to deal with that. You're just letting this barrage of input just pile up on you, right? With things falling through the cracks, and you feeling this sort of angst about all the stuff that might be in there that you should be doing something about, or might be thinking about, or making decisions about. Those are symptoms of dysfunctionality of the protocols that you need to set up to make sure that you and the team and the people around you are agree upon. Do we use texting for that? What are we using Slack for, by the way? And by the way, where are we keeping track of stuff that the team needs to see? And these are, again, back to the mechanics of how a team is actually working together. But if those are unclear, so I guess, really high performance teams have got that by hook and crook and figured that out, or at least are making it work.
100%. And the word team, I want to just look at that for a second. So often we think of a sports team, we think of an organization in a corporate setting as a team, but equally, me and my partner, we're a team. And,
you and your kids?
Me and my son Finn, we're a team.
You're in your taxi driver.
Yeah.
Anybody that you're in a relationship with, that in that relationship you want to get something done together, is a team.
Mm.
Some people have sort of mistakenly defined teams as only something where everything works. No. It's anytime you're trying to get anything done with anybody else, you're a team. Mm-hmm. And some of those teams are short-lived. Look at movies.
Yeah.
Right? You bring together all kinds of people that never knew each other or whatever, and have, in a very short period of time, have to work together quickly and then dissolve and get another movie. So there's all kinds of examples of where that has to happen. So it doesn't have to be something that's long term. It could be immediate. It could be just you could have something that, look, the committee I'm on was just good for this afternoon. Then we'll dissolve. Fine. That's a team.
So I see this book then being applicable not just to the corporate team, not just to the sports team. This is applicable to any of us that interact with other humans.
Exactly.
It's incredible. So take me through the book. Is there specific sections that we will experience as a reader?
Yeah, but James, the book is such an intensely full manual of all the different best practices and worst practices that we've seen go on. And so you can snack on the book. You can open up to any page and go, oh, that applies to us. Oh no, we do that one. That's fine. So there's kind of a pick and choose. The book has a structure to it. We talk about, the first part of it is like, what's the problem out there? People disengaged with their work and why, and how, unhealthy that it is potentially, and what the need for this book is, and why it's important now, given the new kinds of work that are out there and the hybrid work that's out there in the post-pandemic world that we're now trying to live in. What are all those issues out there that now have brought up stuff that teams may not have had to deal with before, but do now? So we talk about that. That's the first part of the book. Then we talk about the best practices. Okay, now here are all the different factors that you may or may not be doing already. And so we're not going to build a training out of this. This is going to be more of a manual for people who are consultative teams or who are on a team. Give everybody in the team the book and then have a conversation. What rang your bell out of this book? in terms of what we're doing, what we're not doing, what we could do better, what we could enhance. And virtually every team that we've ever engaged with probably could use some part of the book to do that. And then the third part is basically, okay, how do you manage a team? What does leadership really mean in terms of a team? And as you probably know, that's your field, is that a leader could be anybody on the team. It doesn't have to be a hierarchical thing. And we have a whole chapter on the new work. And a lot of the new work has to do with sort of self-organizing teams, self-organizing companies, where there's kind of getting rid of the hierarchy. You just have roles and expectations and purposes for those roles. And then there's, a collaboration, process that is being set up. That's not for everybody, but given that in a currently hierarchical, kind of a situation that you may have inherited or be in, there are ways that even the team itself can function a lot more optimally, given the culture that they're in. So we talked about all that stuff. And then we do, a lot of it where we refer to the getting things done methodology, but you don't have to be a GED or getting things done advocate to get a whole lot of value out of what this book is about. Because getting things done is just a compilation of best practices anyway. Stuff. Yeah, of course, that works. And this book is too. It's like, and we made this as evergreen as we could. You still use these things when you fly to Jupiter in 2090. We've reduced it down to what are the key elements that just go into making it work when you're trying to get good stuff done with other people. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. So we have a whole big appendix about what the heck is GTD. And so I wrote that out so that anybody can say, what is GTD? Well, they can go to the appendix and see, a short version of the getting things done methodology.
It's amazing. As you say, it's a manual and a playbook. People can jump in as they wish and apply it. So let's just dip our toes into the disengagement comment you made. So I've seen some studies come out around the engagement or lack of around the world. It's pretty shocking. So in the research for the book, what were you finding around the lack of engagement in teams globally?
Well, same stuff you probably see the Gallup polls and whatever. And, there's a number of things out there that basically say, 60, 70, 80% of the workforce doesn't really like what they're doing. Not particularly engaged. And that number is increasing. So I guess what we've seen and the research shows that, in different countries and different cultures, that engagement factor is higher or lower, but not a big change, but they're not getting better.
Why is it getting worse?
Well, obviously the hybrid work, the virtual work, the globality of the work, the virtualness of the work have so shaken a whole lot of the old team structures. I think that's one of the reasons that's happened. And the fact is that there's still a lot of old legacy ways of trying to manage a hierarchical organization and teams. And it just doesn't work as well. Paying that much attention. And, there's a new generation of people out there, the millennials or whatever, they're quite famous now for being really caring that their work makes difference, that it's meaningful stuff. In the old days, that didn't make too much difference. You just get your paycheck and work from 9 to 5 and then leave and just be told what to do the next day.
It's changed a lot.
That's changed a lot.
And
we'll continue to. You're not going to get rid of the need for agile and strong Kanban and all those, great workflow processes. When we talk about the new work, we go back to a little bit of the history, all the way from Deming back, in Toyota in Japan, and all that then sort of migrated and morphed into things like agile and strong and Six Sigma and those kinds of things, which are all great. They all have really good stuff to do, but they're all about external workflow and making those efficient. No waste. As somebody in the very big in the agile world said, getting things done is agile for the brain. It's lean for the brain. In other words, no wasted thinking. So it's the thought process and the focus that is really critical. You mentioned, stolen focus. Well, focus is probably one of the critical elements of a team. What is its focus? How does it focus? Can it focus? And
Yeah,
come on. If you suddenly have three people leave and you don't know who left or what role they had, and now what gaps do you need to fill, and you got three new people coming in, and one's in Brazil, and one's in Norway, and one's in China, and you get them on board. And because they're all bringing their history into the situation, they're all bringing and what they think are their standards. We have two whole chapters on standards and principles on the team. What are your standards?
talk about standards because I hear a lot of people talk about values in a team. Our team values are this. What do you think is the key difference there between having values and standards?
They're pretty much the same thing. Standards would be pretty specific. How late can meetings start and people feel comfortable? How many digital devices are you allowing people to have in a meeting? Right? How clear are you about what you decided at the end of that meeting and who's doing what about it? Those are standards. Mm-hmm. And teams already have whatever standards they're allowing right now. So it's not like they don't have standards, they have whatever they are. But are they optimal?
And high performing teams, I guess, set higher standards. They hold themselves to a higher standard across all areas.
Yeah, for sure. And they recognize when things are off standard, and they don't blame people or judge people. They just go, okay, what more education do we need? Or if somebody can't step up to those standards, they leave. That's what they do.
100%. And if someone was listening,
but also you need to model them. Unfortunately, a lot of leaders think their teams ought to work better, but they're modeling crap.
Yeah,
they're not writing notes in meetings. They're making commitments that they're not keeping track of. They're not holding people accountable to those kinds of commitments that people make. They're not following up with people in terms of what they're waiting on to come back from somebody else. They're waiting till it blows up before it shows up. So a lot of it is the modeling and the standards. And if you as a leader, James, are keeping those standards yourself, for instance, your standard of capturing that, which you talked about earlier, you bought that in. You're working around people who aren't doing that. Are you tolerating that?
And if I tolerate that, that's the standard I get to accept. Then if I accept a lower standard, that's on me.
Exactly.
And you talked about best practices and worst practices. What are some of those key best and worst practices of the most high-performing, healthy, high-performing teams?
Oh, myriads of them. Any one of these things I've talked about, high-performing teams capture stuff that have people's attention. Worst practice is not doing that. Just letting things lie or letting things fester around the coffee machine. A lot of people are bitching on about stuff instead of saying, okay, what do we need to do to fix it? They could go on and on and on. Lack of purpose. You even have a team because there's a purpose to begin with. That's why there's a team. It's to get something done. But oftentimes that purpose has been either forgotten or not reinforced. Why are we exactly here? How about purpose for a meeting? How clear is that? We actually work with a client, a very sophisticated financial firm in New York City. And once we coached them and sort of trained them about all this, they actually legislated then if you've been invited to a meeting and the purpose is not clear, you don't need to go.
That's so good.
So that was fixing a worst practice. Well, people are just going to meetings because the cow in front of them went there. We had a Monday meeting. Right? No dead cows must be the thing to do.
I love it. There's so many people listening right now, David, going, my God, we have so many pointless, stupid meetings. I don't know why I go to them. So if someone wants to get clear on, hey, we want a company that has a very clearly defined purpose for each and every meeting, how do we define a purpose for a meeting? What does that look like and how simple can it be?
Pretty simple. Why are you meeting? What do you want to accomplish by what time?
Mm-hmm. That's
I
it.
mean, those questions can change a culture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do we want to accomplish by what time? You know, because people talked about all kinds of things, and so then the time runs out. Everybody has to run to another meeting and be another 5 minutes late to that next meeting. And uh, so it doesn't take very much. You just need to go, wait, why exactly are we coming together, and what would the desired outcome be of us getting together? And by the way, what role are you playing in that meeting, and why are you there? There's a second aspect to that as well. Lack of role definition is another key dysfunctionality for a lot of teams. Uh, you're vice president of human resources. How do we know you've done a good job? Well, it's you. You're head of finance. How do we know you've done a good job when what's
Mm-hmm.
true? So titles don't mean crap
Yeah.
if you don't know exactly what you're supposed to be doing and what your role is and what the purpose of that role is, and then whether you're going to do a good job or not. It's hard to feel like you've done a good job if you don't know what your job is.
Mm. And this is interesting. I sometimes meet with leaders, very senior leaders, who have teams, and a lot of their middle management and so forth have very, very specific KPIs and very specific outcomes. But the leaders, the senior or the executive leaders, don't have any measurables, don't have anything that they've got to report on. And to me, I see such incongruence there. Why should one part of the business have to do it and not the other? So I agree with what you said earlier. The title, as in CEO, GM, it doesn't matter. That's actually irrelevant. Leadership is not title, it's how we influence ourselves and others. So, how important is it for all of us to work well together as a team to get things done together, to know our roles, our responsibilities, but also have measurable, say, KPIs or whatever you want to call them?
Hard to do for knowledge workers.
Mm-hmm.
Easy to do is cranking widgets and we crank the thing. But if you're supposed to wait till you have a healthy organization and your morale is where it needs to be, how do you measure that? Yeah, you could do surveys and say, are we going up or going down, and see what's the direction everywhere. I mean, you can create measures about that, but yeah, if there's something you can measure, make sure.
Staff
There are a whole
turnover,
lot of there
revenue,
are a whole
growth.
lot of there are a whole lot of things you can't measure. It's all going to be anecdotal. You just have to trust that your anecdotal information will be sufficient to let you know whether you've done a good job or not.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about meetings and people's roles in them. Let's take it to email for a second. You are a leader or you're a part of a team, and Jim has emailed Sue and he CC'd you in. And you look at the email and you go, I don't know why I'm CC'd in. It doesn't mention my name. There's nothing for me to do an action on this, but I've been CC'd in. You're getting 10 of those a day, 20, maybe 30. So, what do you think that leader needs to do who gets CC'd in constantly, complains about how many emails they've got to check? What would be the best practice for them?
Well, they want to decide, is there information in that email that they need to keep track of?
Mm-hmm.
Don't just go drag it into a folder. Anymore. CC should be just FYI.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be CC'd on a lot of things. You need to know. I want to be aware of what's going on in that thing. So you can't you can't make such a hard and fast rule about no CCs. You can say, well, why am I getting CC'd on this?
Right.
And it could be because there's information they think you might want to keep or have or be aware of. Can't blame them if that's true. Why not just go email back? Hi guys, I don't need to be CC'd on this anymore. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's
Rather
not
than
hard.
complaining and bickering about it, it's getting back to them going, hey, why am I in this? May I be
Yeah,
removed?
and also look, either delete it. Now I've seen it, and I don't need to keep track of it. It's called delete. That's Control A, Control X, whatever out here, or I need to store it because it's information that I could need to have access to maybe in the future, in which case you drag it over there. So there's no reason, James, do you only take out part of your garbage?
Get pretty
Oh, this is
smelly
the
if that
really
was the
smelly
case.
stuff. I'm only going to take out the really smelly stuff. Everything else I'm going to leave there. Like
That
that
ain't
makes
gonna
about as
happen.
much sense as people letting emails pile up when I'm deciding what to do about them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm one of those guys that my email, you'll laugh, there's 26,000 unread emails. Now, I could hit select all and mark them as read, but it doesn't bother me to see that number. And a lot of them are spam and a lot of them are things I don't need to see. But I know for a lot of people, email zero, inbox zero is an important number they want to get to for their own clarity. For me, I don't buy into it. I don't mind it, but I get back to the emails that I need to get back to. And I have a storage system and a flagging system for the key stuff. But there's still things that pile up, that's for sure. So I could improve in that area, David. There's no doubt about it.
Your turn.
What does your email inbox sit at?
Zero.
There we go.
Well, it's never, it's never zero, but you seldom is it ever more than a screenful.
Yeah.
I
And how
decide
much
what
time
is
do
it.
you think, on average, you spend on email, roughly, a day?
Hey, minutes.
Amazing. And what about the teams you consult to, the large, say the big pharmaceutical companies, the CEOs? How much time do they say they're spending on their emails?
Well, a lot of them like you, just ignore it, and then let stuff pile up and whatever, and I just say, do it, you know, do Control A, Control X, and pray.
Yeah.
The email bankruptcy. You could clean it all up and you just say, okay, let me just sort it by date, and then just create a file over there called emails from March, emails from April, emails from May, and just drag them all over there.
I like it. I might get the team onto that.
Well, come on. I mean, your physical mailbox, do you just leave stuff in there?
You're right. It's empty, empty. Every time there's a mail in there, I'm looking for it, taking it out. What's in there? 100%. Garbage, same thing. It's getting close to full. Get that thing empty. Let's get it out for sure.
No difference.
You're challenging me here, David. I like this.
Your choice. As I said, I'm not a motivational speaker. I just define what the game is. It's
Yeah.
just a whole lot easier than run out. If four people jump you in a dark alley, you don't want 2,000 unprocessed emails hanging in your psyche. You need to be clear. You need to not have any of the ambient anxiety. See, I will suggest that 26,000 emails create at least a small little measure of ambient anxiety for you, James.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just willing to tolerate it. I'm not.
Honestly, this is good to hear. This is exactly what I need to hear, actually. This is great. There's others
Well,
probably needing
that's
to hear this as well. This is good.
that's your decision.
And I want to go back a little bit and talk about lack of engagement, or let's call it disengagement. That's the problem. Now, if we let problems persist, there's going to be major consequences or minor. But what do you think is the problem? If we fast forward 10, 20, 30 years, we're looking at all these teams globally. If we allow disengagement, if we don't get our teams working together and thriving together, what's the consequence for our economies, for our joy, for connection? What's the consequence?
I don't know. I don't
Do you
know.
think it's
I
more
know the
negative or positive?
consequences. The consequences personally.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't enjoy what you're doing, you're going to pay that price of some sort in terms of your health, your stress, your focus, your ability to enjoy life.
Mm-hmm.
So, people love to get stuff done. They love to accomplish. They love to win. And whatever they're doing, it doesn't have to be a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we took the dogs for a walk and they both peed and pooped. Wow.
I
Yay.
do that every morning
You
and say it is a celebration. I get it.
you know, it's like completion. We love to complete. We love to do stuff, and we love to actually do stuff that's meaningful. My good friend and big champion of GTD, Dan Payne, wrote about this years ago in one of his first books. It's like, what do people really need to feel motivated? They need to feel like there's purpose to what they're doing. It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be, oh, this is meaningful. I do this, and then this kind of thing shows up, or then I'm producing this kind of thing, which is a good thing. Those are, I mean, that's really good. And you need to be acknowledged for that, and at least self-acknowledged. And recognizing what I've accomplished and what I've done. So just being aware of purpose and being aware of why you're engaged in whatever you're engaged in, it's got to be healthy, much healthier. So I don't know on a larger global meta scale, James, the answer to your question. I don't know what difference that's going to make. It's the world out there. I think, one of the things that's happened, this may be a little bit, it's kind of at least a sidebar response, is the majority of the workforce are going to be subcontractors instead of employees. That's a trend. That's happening. Why? People like to work for themselves. They like to be in charge of their own destiny. They like the ability to be able to go, okay, now let me go over here because that's a cool thing they're inviting me to do, as opposed to the legacy that I'm inheriting, just out of my status quo-ness or comfort zone or whatever, that I just want a paycheck, be told what to do, and go home, have a beer, watch the TV. So I've known many people, ditch the line, that's what they did. And that was fine with them. But the organizations they were working in now are quite different than that. There's a whole kind of different game up there. And I think, there's this competitiveness. If you're the only person who has a word processor and a spreadsheet, you win.
Yeah.
But everybody's got a word processor and a spreadsheet. So, you better be really good with what you're doing with that, if you want to be competitive, if you want to make sure you have a business that works. So, kind of, boats rise with the tide or something, whatever that phrase, that saying is.
Rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah. And a sinking tide sinks all boats. So I don't know. There's a non-answer to your question. Sorry.
I appreciate it. No, it's fantastic. And, I think the whole idea of teams learning to work together and getting things done together, it makes sense, but common sense isn't always common practice. So I see your book as being a solution to allowing us to work better together towards a common goal. And whilst we're doing it, have purpose, meaning, and perform above the norms, as in not be mediocre, but be high performers. So if there was one message from this book, just one message that you thought this is what the message is to the reader, what is the one message?
Be conscious of what your team is doing and how it's doing it. And is it optimal? Could it be better?
I love that. It's interesting because high performance, it's not a destination, right? It's a constant striving.
Well, not only that, James. I mean, as somebody, one of the successful people who did an early endorsement of the book, said, this is a book to be read over and over because you're going to change. Yeah. Your life is going to change. You don't have the same team that you had 2 years ago, James. 2 years from now, you're not going to be in the same situation that you are now. And you might need to then reconfigure, rethink, relook at how we're doing what we're doing. Because then, the status quo is not staying the status quo very long these days. That's right. I mean, the only thing that's new is how frequently things are new.
That's really well put.
So you need to have the emanation and the team to know that no matter what change happens, I can apply the formula here and then reconfigure, reconnect, refocus what I'm doing based upon the change that's coming in. And that's a whole lot of, I think, high performance is the ability, the military call it situational awareness.
Mm-hmm.
How aware are you of now what the new reality is?
Yeah.
And how willing are you to then reconfigure, reintegrate, rethink, refocus with yourself and the people around you to be able to stay competitive and to stay, come on, look at all the organizations that have just gone south because they didn't do that. Success was their biggest failure.
Success breeds complacency often.
Yeah.
You see it with the greats, even athletes. They get to the gold medal or the Olympic thing and they never do it again. And it's interesting you get an endorsement like that. When you say that about the book, it reminds me of Jim Collins' Good to Great. I've read that book maybe 4 times, and not from front to cover, but little bits of it. And every time I read it at different stages, it applies in such a different way. And I go, wow, I didn't see it that way last time.
Well, getting things done is the same thing. I've had people read the book 10, 15, 20 times. Every year they pull the book out and read it again because things change. And they always see something or recognize something because they're different. So they have a different filter to see different parts of the information.
It's really powerful. And your team, what's your team up to? When we talk about your team, let's say off field, not the book, but your family. What's on your horizon? What do you guys work towards? What are you excited about?
Well, we have the launch of the new book. That's big. And,
Huge.
we built a sort of a global network. We were able to change our company because we found a great partner to take over training and coaching. We had a couple of partners that take over training and coaching in the U.S., which was a lot of what our business was. So we had 50 people then. We have 5 now.
Wow.
Because we've become mostly an IP licensing thing. We still have some digital products and some digital things that we're doing online. And that's also vital. But there are 5 of us, and me and Catherine, my wife, are 2 of us.
Brilliant.
And we have John, who's in Santa Barbara, handles sort of accounting and a lot of our digital stuff. We have Ana Maria in Medellin in Colombia. She does a certification of our trainers and a lot of our community of practice. She manages out of the certified trainers we have around the world and our licensees. And we have Ann, who lives in the Monterey area in California, who's kind of our legal and, manages a lot of that stuff that needs to be dealt with and all that. So, and, we adopted, and we adopted Holacracy 14 years ago. So that's how we run our company. There are we have no titles. We just have roles and purpose those roles. And we get together as we need to.
It's amazing. And you're obviously using this philosophy that you're sharing with others, and it's working.
Yeah. And actually, Ed and I wrote the book. He's a good person about it.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Do you see AI having a role in teams getting things done with others, or do you see it having a negative effect?
AI, Microsoft gets so far, and even kind of jury's still out with people where it's going to go and what they're going to do with all that. But frankly, I don't think it's anything other than really good decision support. AI is not going to buy your mom's birthday present. It's going to give you a lot of good information and perspectives that you might want to take into consideration when you go decide what to buy mom for birthday. You see her favorite colors. Here's all the things you bought with her before. You might want to consider this. And how old is she? And within people that age probably would like these kinds of things. Yeah, all that's just decision support, which is cool. Yeah, that's good stuff. For years, I said, look, the ultimate thing is, James, you walk into your office or whatever you use to work in and it says, gee, James, hey, it's 3:00. You usually like a beer at Friday afternoon at this time. Do you want a beer?
I love it.
So it'll know who you are, where you are, what you're doing, what you like to do, whatever. And I think that's, come on. nothing wrong with transparency of what all that is. People, you're still going to have to curate the results of AI.
Mhm.
You're not going to, it's not going to replace your brain. It's not going to replace your decision making process. It's not going to replace your intuition. It'll support a lot of that, or give you, ideas and perspectives and all that. But yeah, nothing wrong with that. I mean, brainstorming has always been a great thing to do, and mind mapping and all that stuff is a great way to potentially see options you hadn't thought of before. But you still got to decide which option you want to take.
I like it. You have an optimistic, positive view on AI, and I feel the same way. I look at it as a tool. It's a tool to support us in our thinking, to challenge us in our thinking, to do some research. I'm with you 100%.
Okay.
No, it's a good tool. Well, I just want to say a huge thanks, David, for creating the space and the time to meet once again to talk about this amazing new book. And for the listener or the viewer, please go to the link, hit the link, get the book. And if you'd rather support local, which I would rather you do if you can, go to your local bookstore and get Team, getting things done with others. David, I wish you all the best with the launch. And I know that pre-orders are available right now. And some people might be watching this in many months in the future. So just go and get it. The book is live.
Hey, thanks, James. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Look forward to seeing you again soon.
Anytime.